channel. Today we are in the Series 1 RS Turbo. As I do this window up, we are going to meet a gentleman that has a Renault 5 GT Turbo. I've wanted to get a bit of video, a good video together of both of these cars, because in my opinion the 80s was pretty much pinnacle start for the turbo hot hatch. So I thought I'd bring my Series 1 RS Turbo along and shoot it by the side of this Renault 5. But if you would like to support the channel in any way, fydapparel.com, we have a ton of new stuff. Link is in the description. We have the new hats that have just gone up. We have a ton of new stickers, and I have restocked these air fresheners. They are live on the site. If you like this video, if you like what I do on this channel, please go and support FYD. All of the proceeds go into creating these videos for you guys. But my Series 1 RS Turbo, I've owned this car for 3 years and I know the car really well, so it's nice to really come from this and jump into something of very similar generation with similar power to weight. That's about 850 kilos. This is 960 quoted on the internet. One's running 167 brake horsepower. The Renault 5 is running, you know, standard 100, 120. I'm really excited to jump into this Renault 5 GT Turbo because, again, it's one of my be-all and end-all dream cars. So let's get on, go and meet the owner and see what it's like in comparison to my Series 1 RS Turbo. And we've just dropped a ton of new hats on the FYD Apparel website. Link is in the description. This is including my favourite, the completely blacked out with the black diamond on top. Available in 5 new colours with blacked out diamond crosses on the front. These UK manufactured trucker hats are a must this summer. Available in very limited numbers. Support the channel, FYD Apparel. Link is in the description. Absolutely lovely bit of traffic. There's loads of traffic in here, unfortunately, but I'm going to get used to the clutch in this because it's not standard. Hopefully I don't snort it on the way out. Oh, nearly. So, Renault 5 GT Turbo. This is a 1986 variant. Now, we have shot a Renault 5 for the channel a few years ago. Yeah, this is not necessarily a not factory one, but it is, of course, as you'll be able to see, not a factory colour. First impressions though, and going from my car to this car, the seats are so much more comfortable. Like the Recaros in the Series 1s are very nice, but maybe it's me being an old man, the back supporting them isn't quite there and the bolster in the bottom. Mine's quite worn though. This one, probably similar wear, although it's showing 67,000 miles on it. The seats in these generations and, you know, later generation Clios are just so lovely. Right, out onto the open road in one of my absolute favourite cars. I love a Renault 5. These are just not pinnacle, but they are pinnacle, aren't they? They are pinnacle turbocharged front-wheel drive hot hatch, in my opinion, because I like old cars. So jumping from one to the other, the first thing I noticed is driving position. The Renault 5 is a lot higher. I feel like I'm a lot higher, I'm a lot more on top of the car rather than the Series 1. Series 1's a lot lower. The seats, of course, and rails and stuff are very different, but this seems a little bit higher up. You're more of a on the dash instead of in the dash like the Series 1. That isn't a bad thing, that's just characteristics from different generations. Now, what I wanted to do with this video is just show these two cars together, but of course giving a little bit of info of what it's actually like to drive these cars in 2023 is quite nice as well. I'm looking down at just the coolest instrument cluster in front of me. Orange faint dials with a boost gauge, so it actually says turbo in front of me, something that the Series 1 factory Series 1 hasn't got in its instrument cluster. You of course get boost gauges off to the side on them, but this is actually a factory boost gauge in this, which is just so cool, isn't it? Like, you know, what I was telling the owner a minute ago was that if you look at the Renault 5 especially, it doesn't have turbo up the side, and this, and the turbo badge is all in the inside, sort of like what the RS Turbo has. It's got RS on the sides. Yes, you can get turbo up the sides of these. This one doesn't have it. It only really is showing off, of course, the wheels, which are turbo wheels, but the badge on the back, that's sort of the only indication you really have of this being a GT turbo car. Whereas the Series 1, you know, on face value, especially my one, it has tons of information for the onlooker depicting that it is a Series 1 RS Turbo. I think Ford went a little bit further on than Renault did at this point with showing off their RS branding on that car. Now, of course, if you were really to pick these two together, pick a Fiesta RS Turbo versus one of these Renault 5s, that's probably what would be similar. But I feel like my RS Turbo, I know so much about it, I've driven it a lot. It's always then nice to jump in something from the same era that's running power and just gauge what it's like. But the radio's like back underneath the dash. It's such an odd placement for it, but it sort of works. It's quirky. It's a French quirky thing. But what's it like to drive? So, third gear will come down. Turbo spool. Oh, listen to it. Just sounds like the 80s in my books, and late 90s, early noughties. Cars don't feel like this. The biggest thing I'm going to notice is this one, standard power 125 horsepower. Mine rolled at 167, but it has around 110 kilos more. That's about 960 quoted. This one, 850. So there is a slight difference there. You can feel the difference, but I feel like power to weight is sort of there. So again, very similar in how they actually come on boost and how they go down the road. Mine does hit a little bit harder than this one though, but this one has a nicer curve. This seems to come on and then stay on, whereas mine just increases its turbo push, if that makes any sense. It does feel good though. It feels really, really good, this car. It's just everything you could ever want from a little car. This is just magic. And I always try and bring cars like this to the channel. It's sometimes hard because these cars don't exist in circulation a lot more. Just listen to it coming down the rev, man. The best thing about a car like this, yes, it's had a colour change, but I feel like it's been put together very, very well. I was talking to the owner, who's actually behind me driving my Series 1. I thought I'd give him a little taste of what the 80s was like from Ford. The first thing he said was, why is it so low? It's so low and so much sort of wider and wider feel. Again, this is slightly more compact and higher up, but I always love to give people what Ford were doing back then versus what they're driving. It has got a sweet spot of power though, and I feel like that's third gear, 3,500 RPMs, kick a boost. Just absolute magic. You don't have to go fast in cars like this, in my opinion. It just feels right at this sort of power, this sort of speed. Listen to it come on in fourth gear, 3,000 RPM, surge of boost. Oh, absolute magic. The roar of the exhaust coming back down the rev, a few pops and bangs out the back. You do get that from the RS Turbo though, because again, both of these cars are, you know, modified in very similar ways. This sounds just so good, that flutter from the front end. Oh, listen to it. Just absolute fantastic feel. Like, it feels really tight, this car. The power feels so right, because it's, say, 125 horsepower, which don't sound like a lot these days. It was a big deal back then, and at 850 kilo, it still just throws you back and feels right. Like, I think, you know, if I was to ever drive one of these that are more powerful, I'd still love to, but this is just the sweet spot, in my opinion, the sweet spot of how Renault 5 GT Turbos should be. Someone thumbs up on the side of the road there. We've had a lot of that today, I will say. Every time we stop, there is someone going, bloody hell, look at them two together. And that's why I love to shoot cars like this and days like this, because it's so nice to bring two cars like this together, because you just don't see it. You don't see it on the internet, you don't see it on, you know, on the road either. You just don't see these sort of cars together, and that's part of what I try and do as my job, is relive these cars, relive these times, because we could be in the late 90s right now with both of these cars, or we could be in 2023 and we're still out here enjoying them in the same way, and I absolutely love that. And yes, because of values, these cars have become slightly unobtainable. I mean, especially RS Turbos, they seem to have just rocketed off just as well as these have. A good one of these still 10, 15, 20 grand I've seen them for, which is mad, but it's justified, because it is just from a golden era of cars. The 80s just produced some insane things, and the Renault 5 GT Turbo is one of them. Even down to like all the plastics and stuff, it's just so 80s, but just so right. And again, it drives just phenomenally, this car. So impressed. With that, guys, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching today's video. If you did like this slight versus of just enjoying both of these cars together, please let me know in the comments below. I'll try and do more videos like this. If you have a car you would like to pitch against my RS Turbo that maybe is similar in value, similar in year, similar in power, please let me know. I would love to get more slight versus, or at least old school cool cars on the channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember, FYD Apparel will support the channel. Link is in the description. We'll see you all on the next one.